Hello, viewers. Welcome once again to Frank's Project Pulse, your most authoritative project management podcast. And today we are here and we entreat you to join us in this discussion. Share your comments, subscribe to our channel, and share the links with your colleagues so we can all engage in this meaningful conversation. This morning, we are here by kind courtesy of Certified Projects Avenue Limited, and we are coming to you live from the studios of Eagle Eye Projects and Events at Adenta in Accra. Just as we've always been doing, we are here to have a very, very insightful and meaningful conversation pertaining to project management. And as you've always done, join us. Let us hear your perspective. Let us also inculcate it into the conversation. Let us make a very rich and informed conversation towards the development of the project management profession and also better the delivery of our public and private projects in Ghana and beyond. Just like all the other previous episodes, this morning we have an accomplished and an astute project professional with us to do the discussion. And I'm going to mention her name and then she will help us get to know her better. Welcome to Frank Project Pulse, Angel Mgawe.
Thank you so much. My name is Angel Mgawe. I am the Director of ESG and Sustainability at REIT Limited. REIT is an advisory and consultancy company that is based in Tanzania. Welcome to Dar es Salaam if you decide to come. I am a certified project management professional, and I volunteer as a board member and VP for professional development at PMI Tanzanian chapter. My background and specialization is in project management, ESG and sustainability, particularly in ESG reporting standards such as GRI, CSRD, SDGs, and IFC performance standards. But also I'm an enthusiast of technology, so I also am a digital transformation specialist.
That's very interesting. And what makes it more interesting is, Angel, you and I would agree that project management has been known to be looking at how successful or otherwise a project has been. And hitherto, we've been looking at the scope, the budget, and then the schedule, what we usually refer to as a triple constraints. Yes. But the project management profession has advanced, and we are looking at things beyond these triple constraints. And you coming in with the ESG. What exactly is ESG?
ESG, I would first say it exists. It's been there, okay? And mostly when you hear ESG, they associate it with corporates, investors, businesses, but very rarely do you see it being integrated into projects. But now more than ever, it's now been part of the conversation. Now, ESG stands for environment, social, and governance. When we're talking about environment, we are looking at the impact to the planet. Okay, a business, the impact that will have to the planet in terms of business or project. So environmental waste, manage efficiency, energy efficiency in that area. When we're talking about social, we're looking at how it affects people. Okay, so we are looking at community engagement, we are looking at inclusivity, diversity, we are looking at, around that. But when we are coming out to the governance, we are looking about accountability, transparency, ethical issues, and concern. So now the conversation needs to be that the projects that we're getting involved in, what impact do they have? Okay. Traditionally, we were only looking at the three constraints, which is the time, cost, and scope. And that alone, if you accomplish, is considered a project success. But how many projects have finished successfully but have left so much damage to the environment. They have left the community in shambles. They have raised ethical concerns. So this is now where ESG is coming in. We are redefining a project success beyond the triple constraints. We are now looking at, are we doing projects responsibly, okay, inclusively, and sustainably? Okay.
Right. Yeah. Right. This conversation is very, very timely. And as a project manager or professional, at what point in the project life cycle do you think these considerations should be given to the ESGs?
I would always say from the beginning, we are starting from a charter level, because the considerations need to be part of the project planning, scope, thinking. Because if you bring in ESG later on, it means that it will be an afterthought. But it needs to be integrated the same way as you would be creating a budget. You need to be able to integrate ESG as part of that. So where I would start is the charter level, in which now we would look at the environmental, we would ask questions such as, will there be environmental risks and opportunities that would be there? We would look in terms of stakeholder mapping, okay? And when I say stakeholder mapping, I just do not mean the usual just customers and governments. No, we would look at the community level, but also we would look at the governance. What governance standards do we want to set for the project that we're going to implement?
So beyond these considerations, having to consider it even from the initiating stage of the project, as a project manager or professional, what would you advise that a project manager who is not very enthusiastic, so to speak, about ESG, what kind of motivation would you give, and also what would you advise that project manager or professional does regarding ESG on their ongoing projects or subsequent projects?
Okay. Now, most of the times when we talk about the environmental and social governance issues, people always think of it as a green cost or something new or something that is for somebody else, compliance. Okay. They throw it to the compliance part. But as project managers, we need to change. We need to look in terms of impact that we are going to have. So for somebody who does not know anything, let's say, if we take out even the term of ESG, is they need to ask themselves, will this project do good for the community that I'm serving? Will it do good for the planet? And are we ensuring that we're following the ethical accountability and transparency as we're implementing the project? So I would recommend first starting by setting the KPIs. Okay, this will allow the project managers to track the progress of the project. Okay, but also I would recommend for them to be able to also link it to international standards or even national priorities. But my favorite being the SDGs. Okay, so example, you have an agricultural project. There, you would say that for the SDG 2, which is net zero hunger. Okay, so for project managers is to first link the projects that they're doing to sustainable development goals or national priorities in order to actually see the impact that it will be able to have. And from there, having the KPIs in place would help with being able to track now the progress that is done in the project.
Okay. On the back of this, what are some of the parameters that as a practitioner who is dealing with ESGs on almost all your projects, what are some of the parameters that are to be considered when crafting our KPIs?
like with any other KPI, being able to trackability, quantify, but also the impact. Example, when you're looking at maybe social KPIs, we will not say that we have just provided training. Yeah, we have trained 70 people, but the question comes, so what? You've trained 70 people, but rather we would look like, yes, maybe we have trained this number of people, and out of those number of people, 100, maybe 70% have been employed. Or let's say 30% are now doing income generation activities, okay? If we're looking at environment, it's not only a matter of saying that we will reduce energy consumption, no, but at what percentage are we talking about, or setting that this project, we will not, will ensure that we're using maybe less than, we'll use maybe 10% from renewable energy sources, okay? But in terms of transparency, governance, we are now looking at ethical issues maybe. How many percentage of your suppliers have gone through a proper procurement process? Okay, are there maybe safeguarding measures in place for people to report things like harassment? How percentage of how many have reported, or tracking of maybe how many have reported, but how many channels are there for people to be able to report such things? Or even ethical issues, anti-corruption, So these are all different ways that we can be able to consider and set different KPIs depending on the project you're working on.
Right. Right. So practically, in your previous projects or past projects, would you be able to share with us what typically you have had to track as part of your KPIs?
Okay, so example, I was working on a community-based project, and the project was looking at providing training and financial knowledge to underprivileged communities, especially women and youth. So one of the KPIs, which was now the general one, was in terms of how many have we trained. Okay, so it was, I think it was close to 300 women, okay, and youth we had trained. But that was not the end of it. Remember, as I said, all projects need to have impact. We need to track the impact. So they have trained, but out of those women and youth, how many went on to start a business? Okay, income generation. And but also, even when we're tracking, we're not always having to track only the positive. In ESG, is equally also to track the negative. Because yes, you have trained 100, let's say, but only found 70 of them have gone through. So the 30, what happens to the 30? That are left, So we were tracking how many were trained, how many started a business, but as part of the monitoring evaluation, 1 year later, we also came and tracked how many were still in business. Because it's one thing to start, it's another thing to have continuous success. But as part of also going to another phase was to be able to track moving them from small SMEs to medium-sized SMEs. So there was also another KPI that how many of the people that we had trained had moved from small SMEs to medium-sized enterprises. So those are the KPIs that you can track in that scale.
Right. So I see sustainability in your submission, and I am curious. If you do this, for how long can you continue to go back to track? How many years would you give yourself to say, I'm tracking you for 5 years, and then beyond the 5 years, what happens? What would you recommend?
Okay, now that will all depend on the project itself. As much as I cannot give a time frame, because also that's a budget thing. So even as part of setting the budget, that is also a consideration needs to be met. But remember, when you're setting your initial metrics, there's a percentage that you wanted to know in order to reach your goal. So let's say for such a project, usually it's in around 3 to 5 years would be the maximum time you'd be able to track. Okay, depending on, as I said, depending on the budget, because most of the time we are looking at the impact, and what we need to ensure is the sustainability of the project even when we are not there anymore. So project managers, even from the beginning, need to ensure that even as part of the implementation of the project is how will it continue. Okay, we have trained the women and youth. Yes, they have started the business. Okay, the others have managed to move into medium enterprises. Okay, how will they continue? Our support is not there anymore. So the sustainability part does not only look in terms of environment, social and governance, but the sustainability part also looks that how will this project continue to have the success that it does even when we're not there. Let me give another example. Maybe I'll move from social projects. It's like when you build a bridge, okay, the bridge is done. What about the maintenance? Okay, so there are either two ways. You'd find most of the bridges, they have toll, okay, because that's the part of ensuring that that bridge will be sustainable, that the bridge itself would generate long-term sustainability. Or else it means that it needs to be integrated into maybe the national budget to continuously maintain the bridge. And it's the same way as with projects. Yeah.
Great. In your discussion or in our discussion, I'm thinking, with your experience, would you be able to recommend some tools, frameworks, checklists that viewers can readily look at in their attempt to incorporate ESGs into their projects?
Yes, I can. I'll start with frameworks. There are already existing frameworks. If you, as I said, like GRI, Global Reporting Initiatives, we have CSRDs, we even have IFC performance standards and so forth. All these are frameworks. Example for the one that I'm even trained for GRI. This would be a good framework when you're going for especially for social and environmental mapping in terms of projects. Okay, but there are other frameworks at the Sustainable Development Goals, and this is the one that I always recommend, especially when people are really getting into the space of sustainability and projects, because this one has more. There's 17 goals, so you're able to choose which goal aligns with what you want to report on. And it usually also links to a lot of the national goals existing. And you would find that a lot of other frameworks have more or less originated from the Sustainable Development Goals. So as I said, with the agriculture one, you link it to number 2, which is zero hunger. The others that you link to partnership, equality, and so forth. And it's very easy for even a beginner to be able to catch up, because a lot of them, it's just with its title alone, you're able to know exactly where you fit in. Now, after that, as part of the checklist, risk management is important. So as part of what you're already doing for risk management is to now consider the E, S, and the G. Okay, so you already have your risk matrix. For other risks, you can just specifically just add, these are the environmental risks that I'll have, these are the social risks that I think I'll have, and these are the governance risks that I think I'll have. So that would be the easiest way for a lot of project managers to start.
Great. I'm looking at this as something that is new to a lot of project managers and financiers or sponsors. As a project manager, with all this knowledge and with the hindsight of benefits of ESG, if your sponsor does not understand this relevance, how would you be able to convince him or her to invest in that budget you are submitting on ESG, and what would you advise that other project managers do in order to get the buy-in of sponsors for these budgets?
Okay. Before I answer your question, I'll take you a bit back on where we are. What we're seeing now is an increase in trend of investors and governments themselves requesting for sustainable for ESG components in the projects that are being done. So a lot of what you are finding now is that even the investors will not fund into a project that has not done an ESG assessment of some sort, a report, in order for them to determine that this project does not will not impose risks to them. So now even projects are taking advantage of that, because that's also a way for them to access funding. Okay, so you'd find that as they are writing proposals for project, they incorporate that in order for them to increase their chances of accessing financing. Now, for those now who have projects and the sponsors may not necessarily align with issues of ESG, it's a classical issue. It's not new. Even in the corporate space, you'd still find businesses like they say it's a green cost, because there's an assumption that sustainability is costful. But I would always say, let's rephrase this. Do you want in the middle of your project the community to go on strike? Okay.
Yeah.
In the middle of your project, environmental things were not considered, and you're providing waste into the community, and regulators come and give you a fine or stop the whole project. Okay. Do you want, in the middle of your project, have governance issues of a corruption scandal? Where would that project go? So instead of looking at it as a cost, look at it as a way to prevent future costs.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So even when going to buy in, tell them that, okay, you don't want us to consider ESG now, but imagine the cost that you get later on when these things do happen. So it's a much cheaper option now to consider them than later on to have issues. I'll give an example. There was a project, it's still going. It's a very big project, but they were building like pipelines and all that.
Right.
Yeah.
Angel, let me know something that before we come back to that, I would want us to quickly look at the fact that in addition to all that you mentioned, it is also a kind of intangible benefit to the organization, as well as the project manager and possibly the sponsor, that you have a reputation in the eyes of the public, that you have ESGs embedded in your project. We are going to go on a short commercial break. When we come back, we'll continue from where we left off. And it's been very, very interesting so far. Viewers, stick and stay with us. We'll be right back.